Hi everyone, today I'm going to be recording the 4th landscape tutorial as part of my Japanese inspired watercolour painting series. I'm going to be painting Mount Fuji again today, but this is a completely different reference photo. There's a little bit less work involved than the rest of the paintings I've done so far, mainly because if you have done the previous tutorials as well, you've got that little bit of experience now, and it is just applying kind of the same skills but creating different and unique pieces. So there are differences but a lot of similarities, especially with what we're actually painting today. As usual, got all my materials ready, the reference photo, my palette for pre-mixing, you can see that on camera, my outline that you can print yourselves onto watercolour paper or trace, paintbrushes, 2 jars of water, and of course my actual watercolour paint. So I'm going to jump straight in as usual. To begin with, we're going to be painting the bushes that you can see. They are at the forefront of the painting and they've got some really beautiful rich colours that I want to get in there. And I'm going to start with some earth green. It's actually called sap green, but if you've got an earth green or something that is on the more earthy side, not as muted as some greens like a turquoise, anything like that will do. I'm going to mix a little bit of brown into this. I want you to see the actual ratio, so I'm going to take my paintbrush, just a little bit there. So it's definitely more on the brown side right now. And the palette next to this one, I'm going to do the same again, but this time I'm going to add more green, so the ratio is going to be more green than brown, so it's more of an earth green this time rather than brown with a hint of green. Quite a bit there, see how this looks. There we go, that's exactly what I wanted. I'm also going to use a little bit of red actually. So there's quite a lot of warmth within these little bushes that are creeping through. Just a bit there in the palette. Obviously this is really bright, we're going to add to this. I'm going to actually go in with the brown. Take a bit on the brush there and add it to the red. I actually think that's a little bit too much. Nearly put a drop in, so I might add some more red back in. So it's finding that balance. A little bit more red. Shouldn't need too much as it's quite a vibrant colour. There we go, I think that's perfect. Making sure the brush is clean. I'm actually going to use my size 2 paintbrush. Can't go wrong with this paintbrush. I'm going to use that earthy green to start with. Looking mainly towards the right hand side because I'm left-handed. So there is a little bit of this green down here. I'm just going to dot that in. It's actually not that much of the earth green this side. I'm going to keep the dots relatively small. looking towards the top here. So I'm treating the bushes as two separate areas. I don't even know if this bit, so you've got all the warm red colour here, and then above that, right before you get to the mountain, there's more of a blue grey section. So I'm going to avoid that area for now, mainly because it's just the wrong colours and we want them to be separate. Really making sure these dots are really small. It doesn't matter if you don't get these perfect either, which is really nice as it takes the pressure away. And you've got this really dark section here. I'm actually again going to avoid that for now, as want more of a dark cold colour for that. And as we come to the top here, there is quite a lot of that green. Say a lot more than the other side, certainly not too much. Very randomly dotting it, as long as it stays small. And through here, I think there's, yes, it's very dark, but at the top here I think there's green that really does push through. See how small these dots are, very randomly placed. Not filling in the whole section, otherwise we would just do a layer of paint. These dots are going to help develop the piece. And also, even if you do dot them all together like I have there, it's very blotchy. It's not like a perfect clean slate wash of paint. It's also very, yes, I'm dotting it down following the reference photo, but notice it's very around here. You've got green, red, green, red. It's very stripy, not symmetrical and not perfection at any means, but you can still see that. There we go, so I'm going to leave that for now. Definitely need to get more in there, but we're just going to keep working in lots of different colours. So I'm going to use the red back on the right hand side. I'm going to add a little bit of brown back in actually. So for this red I'm adding in now, if you look at the outline provided, there's like a strip, like a little line here, and if you look at the reference photo there's like a strip of red. It just comes all the way down here, and then above that there's a little bit more shadow, so you can really distinctly see this section that I'm putting in. Again, I'm keeping it quite open, I'm not going in and dotting everywhere. There's a couple of little negative spaces so far that we can then fill in. Working around the green for now. So I've mapped in that little line, and I'm coming up here now just to get the colour in at this stage. And then with the brown, just going to make sure I've got some of that in there where that line is so you can still see it. while this is drying, just a little bit. Same for here, there's a lot of brown, so I'm just gently getting that in there for now. And there's a lot of red up here. Just getting in the colour, not really adding detail and shadows to this yet. I'm going to go in with a bit more brown, get that general shape in there. Same with the dots. Keeping these ones a bit bigger so we can get them down faster in this section. You'll see why later on when we fill it in a bit more. You can see these dots are a lot bigger than the green and the red. Again, this will all make sense pretty soon actually. I'm just adding in the rest of the colour into the areas kind of missed. I don't mean the negative space, I mean like this area here, missed out a few dots. I think most of it would be green, just looking at the reference photo. So I'm going in with a few of them. Not worried about going into the brown either. There we go. So I'm going to go back in now with all the same colours really and start to neaten up. I'm going to start with the red this time as there is just more of it. I'm going to dot this back over all of them sections. I only need a light little layer. It's kind of filling in the negative space, but I'm also going to use some brown, some green, and just start blending and merging all these colours. detail. If you just add a little bit of green over the top, that kind of mutes all this red even more. Let that dry a little. Here I think it could do with a bit of green over the top, again just to mute it a little bit. You don't need a lot of paint on the brush to do this. Some brown. And red going over some of the brown, so it's not just separate colours, it is starting to then merge. Some green in there as well. Filling in all the little blanks really. You can be a bit messy with this as you've got that foundation, so say this is the most lengthy part of the whole painting. Blending all these colours, some pushing some green up into that more red section, some red back into further down there. Some brown where it gets a little bit darker down here. There we go. So I'm just going to quickly mix one more colour for this whole section that we're working on, and that is blue with a little bit of brown. See how this mixes. Oh, got it spot on, that never happens. So I've barely added any water to this as we want it really dark, as it's mainly going to be used for the shadows. So taking a look at the reference photo, just getting it all over me apparently. Oh dear, let's get this off because I know what I'm like. It'll get on the paper. So bad for getting paint everywhere. Okay, maybe a little bit more water, as it's not even moving on the paper. Just getting this in to all these shadows. I'm dotting it where the top of it is, like around here, so it blends in a little bit. But then this bottom section is really dark. We've got also a little section, just a little bit on the brush. So I'm really getting this in there, and it's nice that you've got the different shadows in now. You can dot it in. I think it's more dotted as it comes over here, so less paint on the brush. You can blend it out a little bit more, with more few and far between dots. Oh, we've also got missed this little bit here that comes above. So a few little darker dots, and I'd say a bit of green and red here, just to blend that in. going back in, identifying again a few more little shadows, just making sure they're there. But yeah, quite simple really, and I know it's taken a while, but I think it is just developing them shadows and all the detail within the bushes. Even though it doesn't really look like a big part of the painting, I think it does help, well it will help tie everything together later on. So now we've done the bushes, I want to move on to painting the mountain. So if you look at the reference photo again, there is a lot of blue going on in here. So I am going to use this little blue. I'm going to actually add a little bit of this brown, the dark brown we've just pre-mixed, just to mute it a little bit. Add a bit more in there, just so it's not as vibrant as what it was with just the blue. And I'm going to really water this down. Want it really quite light. I'm going to go in with my size 2 brush that we've just been using. And yeah, start painting the structure for the mountain. So we've not created that strip of blue that I mentioned earlier yet. That's a little bit darker than this. So I'm actually just focusing on the mountain itself. So I'm going in on this right hand side, and you've got this little strip that ends quite abruptly actually. I'm painting around where that more dark section that I've just mentioned is going to go, and then coming up from the bottom, getting in these lines that really help shape the mountain. As we come more towards this side, they come a little bit more vertical. There's one little section here that comes quite a bit higher actually, so I'm painting that in. Still creating that outline and filling in all this bottom section that has been left bare. These little lines, really getting them in there. Not as many on this side. I think the light's hitting more from the left. There's quite a lot of little lines actually, like so. So everything points and shapes the mountain. So on the left hand side where I am now, all these lines are coming up towards the point, going right, and then on the other side they're going left towards the point. So they're all moving in that general direction, and the further you get into the middle, the more vertical they go. And as this right hand side has dried quite quickly actually, and add a few more lines in if you want. Darken up a little bit maybe. Got all them little lines in, really has taken shape already. And this is all the dark section now filled, so I'm going to let this dry a little bit, then we can maybe go in to fill in the white later. I want to get everything else down first though, as it might, don't think it will be, but some of it might be able to be left white and have that negative space so you can see the top of the mountain and have it really stand out. So now I am going to move on to the sea. And if you look at the reference photo, the sea is it's quite not simple. I don't want to say it's simple, but it's very symmetrical actually to the bushes above it. You can see all of the shadows coming down into the sea from that. So we're going to practice a little bit of symmetry with this, but it's not going to be as difficult as I think it looks. So I'm going to add a light layer of water down into the whole section so we can use the wet in wet method. And I'm actually going to bring the water further out in comparison to the bushes so we can start working on the blend of the background, which is something I try to add to all of the paintings. Yeah, I've got that in there. Oh, there's a dot of blue there, but I'm going to use that same blue we've just used for the mountain and just get this down. Just added a little dot and I'm going to paint this in to all of that section, being careful not to go into the bushes if they're not completely dry. Oh, I've actually missed, if you guys haven't already, there's a little strip there that's got more of that yellow colour, so don't paint into that like I have. I'll see if I can tidy mine up, but either way it's not too much of a worry. So I'm painting down to about here. Then with the blue, as I've done throughout all of this painting series, I'm just going to dot this out, let it bleed. So we've got that blend out of the colours into all of them edges. So, going back to size 2 brush, the thing with shadows within the ocean is everything matches, shadows, symmetry, sorry, within oceans is, or sea, any still water, it does match up to what is above it usually, like from this perspective. So I'm going to use that brown, that dark brown that we mixed and added to all of the edges. I've actually missed a little bit there. And I'm just going to put this through the sea as required. So I would say a little strip there. And because this is wet, it's going to bleed out. This side, I'm being careful to leave that space for the little sandy section. Only comes to about here anyway. A little gap here. So, just cleaning the brush and scraping off the excess water, I'm gonna create more of a blend. Not here, as that's where that beach section's gonna go. Maybe on the edge there a little bit. This section, I'm gonna really focus on bleeding it out. Down here, there's a lot of little lines. Few little ripples here and there you can add in. Again, blend them out with some water. I'm going to just mix a little bit more of that dark brown has run out. Oh, I think actually needs just a little bit more blue there. There we go. Of course, I've got it all over me again. I think just quickly wash that off. Going back to the blue, as I don't want the brown to completely overpower. I'm just making sure, I might use a bigger brush just to blend it. But that blue is still there, just a little bit. I'm just going to leave that a little bit just because I've added a lot of water and I think all the colours will bleed a little bit too much now. But I'm going to use that blue actually and paint in, because the mountain's dry, this little section I mentioned a bit earlier. And that little rockery bit, so going around all this section, and I'll darken it up in a second. With a bit of that really dark brown, just dotted a few drops in there, then blend that all together. You see how that's immediately darkened. So really darkening that up, as it stands out a lot in comparison to the mountain. I'm going to blend out these sides now, some water. So I'm going in with some brown, a lot of red this side. Green. And of course some blue. Blending up edges as well, a little bit of the colour creeping out of everywhere really. So now I'm going to move on to this background sky area. So I'm making sure my brush is clean. I'm actually just going to put a layer of water. I've just changed my jars of water as well. So I think everything got really muddy very quickly. I'm just going to neaten up that blend out. Just adding a bit more water down, letting it do its thing. So yeah, I'm going to use the wet in wet method, of course, and get this down really. This water down into all the sky area, going around everything else as we come down to it. So mainly the mountain and the bushes. So I'm going to use, actually I think different blues. I want just a little bit more vibrancy, so literally just a drop. I think I'll dot it out actually. So we want this really light, as if you take a look it's lighter than the mountain area. Of course not where the snow is, but everything else, yeah, super light and vibrant. I think that's actually too light. Get a bit more in. Now this will be too dark, of course. Just finding that balance. See how, there we go, a bit better. So I'm getting this into all the sky section, and then we can blend out into the background area. And this sky, it's beautiful. It's literally just, there's no clouds, there's nothing. It's so bright and blue. So I'm really taking my time going around the mountain to kind of block that in. Around the bushes. And then we can dot this out. Might need to cause that a bit more water either side. Use a size 2 brush to dot it in. You'll see the difference. It's just smaller dots as there's less paint being retained on the brush. Might go in with the darker blue as well, just so you can see the dots out a bit more. Maybe a couple more going into the sky a little bit. There we go, super simple. Took no time at all to map that in. Just going to get my next palette out. I'm going to add a little bit of yellow down. And add a bit of red to this. So you've got that golden colour. I'm going to get this down just a little bit into this section. Should paint nicely over the blue. Might add a bit more red to it actually, as it is sitting nicely over it. Bit of red there. But yeah, just these small little details do a lot for this kind of painting. Super simple, did not do a lot there at all. And I'm going to go back to this brown. Just get, I'm literally just going to put in a few little lines that we can then blend out. So literally like that. I'm going to clean the brush and use the water to blend to start with, like so, just so you've got it all in the right place. more there. And you've also got these little lines. So now I've cleaned the brush again. I'm going to go in to the edges of all these dark sections and just blend them out like so. I'm really going to blend this one out here. I think because it's further down, the symmetry becomes so it's the symmetry of the bushes becomes less obvious, and you want that to reflect in there. I just blending it out a little bit more within that section. So I'm just going to keep going until happy with the blend out and how dark it is. You don't want to rush it, you can keep going in. Obviously you don't want to go in with loads of water, but you can keep adding the colour and blending out a little bit. Add a bit of blue back in if you've added too much, that dark grey browny colour. But I'm actually really happy with this. I think with that really light blue that we used for the sky, I'm just going to put a bit through the mountain on the right hand side so you've got a bit more shadow. Maybe a little bit there as well, but on the left I'm going to leave that pretty much white, maybe pushing up a bit there like that. But yeah, really happy with this. And again, it's not been overly complicated, which is never a bad thing. Let this blend out over here. Do with a bit of work. So I'm just going in with some clean water, dotting that in if it's not wanting to budge. But as always, let's take the tape off and take a look. Like I say, I think this has been the most simple out of all of them that we've done so far, because it is combining the elements and just in general everything we have painted hasn't been overly complicated. Like even with the bushes, it was a lot of dots. You can go in and keep adding more and more colour if you wanted to. Taking a look, I might just dot a little bit more to blend all of this together. Take away all of that negative space. A bit more green through the darker section. Yeah, nothing overly complicated there. I'm really happy with this one. And if anyone's got any questions, please feel free to ask. Just drop me an email, drop me a message, comment on YouTube, anything like that. Anyway you can find me. There we go, all the tape's nicely off. This definitely needs a little bit of drying time. I could feel the weight lifting it up then. But yeah, I'm really happy with this. I think maybe the reflections do with a bit more work. But again, it's just going in and blending. There's nothing overly complicated, and I don't want to do it too much and then ruin the tooth of the paper, as I have added a lot of water to this, so I think this will do. I'm really happy with it. So yeah, thank you so much for watching, guys. I really hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. Let me know how you found it, and what other artwork you'd like me to create, and I will be creating some more landscapes, as I'm going to be using these paintings for my calendars this year, which I'm super excited to share at some point. It might be a while before I do any sort of announcement, but yeah, I'm really excited to create calendars again. They're always a big success for me. So yeah, I will see you all next time. Thank you so much for watching. Bye guys.